Hi again, I think. Um, Welcome to these humble videos that are for you. This is the first video that we are going to see from our current partial, that is political philosophy. And just to be said, political philosophy is not a philosophy branch that is apart from anthropology, or, as we already saw, ontology or epistemology. Okay, those philosophy branches that we already studied during the entire semester in the previous one. There are philosophy branches that I related. Okay, so for example, in these political theories, in some way to say it, we presuppose certain anthropologic theories, some human perspective, or perspectives of conceiving in certain way the human being, you know. So our first philosophy is Thomas Hobbes, and yes, as you can see, he lived 91 years. He was, and he lived long, you know. And just to be said as a preamble of all of this, the political philosophy, or the political reflection, in other words, is something that was born with philosophy, you know. In ancient Greece, for example, Aristotle thought that we were these phrases, son politikon, that is political animal or political creature, okay, that could be understood as some politikon. Human being is social and political, a political being by nature, according to Aristotle, and in certain way in all the ancient Greece horizon, okay. But the question is how, first of all, how human being was conceived in the modernity, in modern age, because, well, as you can see, Thomas Hobbes was a modern age philosopher, you know. When I say in the modern era, and think about Descartes, think about Kant, okay, think about Leibniz. Well, we saw a few things about Leibniz, Spinoza, okay, so Thomas Hobbes is in that era, okay. So the first thing that we could say about Thomas Hobbes is that he was an empiricist philosopher, okay. Do you remember what is empiricism? Well, remember David Hume, okay. Remember that every human knowledge has its origin in the impressions, okay. The impressions could be understood as those feelings, those sentiments, those passions, okay. Actually, I didn't write passions under this schema, but passions could be another word that could be perfectly be written in this schema, okay. But as every good empiricist philosopher, Thomas Hobbes think that knowledge begins with the impressions, okay. And in that sense, imagine that, or remember that any knowledge in empiricism, in empiricism branch of philosophy, starts with that, with impression, with feelings, with the way we perceive the world, okay. The important thing is the perception, okay. But in certain way, Thomas Hobbes was not only an empiricist philosopher. He was kind of he had like a certain rationalistic ways of see philosophy too, you know. He was like in the two branches, you know, but is considered by many philosophers and many people as one of the empiricist philosopher, you know. Then, um, if the important things are the impression and the thing that actually the way do we feel and the way we experiment the world, the physical movement is the origin of ideas, is the source of ideas. Remember that in the opposite way, the rational way of thinking was like, I have an idea, okay, and because I have this innate idea, for example, I can see that idea in the world, not in the opposite way, as they are proposing, that we have particular experiences, and because of those experiences I can have rational ideas and universal ideas, okay? So, in this schema, in this thought, the important thing what is that because of this physical movement, we have the origin of ideas, and this physical movement is the universal cause of everything. Everything is constantly changing, okay? Everything is changing. I'm moving. Actually, we saw things that seems to be not to move, but actually everything is constantly changing, okay? So, in that sense, Thomas Hobbes had an important way of conceive philosophy, okay? The philosophy's purpose to Thomas Hobbes was the power, the action, okay? I can know the world, I can know, I can feel, I can have sentiments, okay? I have passions, but the question is, what do I do with the power of those passions, with how do I act, okay, in order to accomplish what my passions are requesting to me, or my desires, you know? Every desire and every passion implies a certain notion of power, okay? Power, what is power? We're going to see that word in all this partial because it's a capital word. But that word, power, in a brief and in a certain way to say it, for example, I have the power to drink this coffee, okay? That is so good. But I have the power, I don't know, for example, we can say human being has the power to change his environment, you know. A human being has the power to, I don't know, go to the moon, I don't know, okay? It's like, what are you capable of, okay? And that is so important in this way, okay? So, this knowledge things and empiricism way of seeing philosophy implies, or it moves to us to think about the causal relations, okay? And again, remember David Hume, okay? David Hume had an attack to the causal relations. Remember that from David Hume, causality doesn't exist, but well, the thing is that in the final sense, philosophy is the I don't like this word, but it's the science, or is the way of studying the causal relation, because everything has consequences, okay? If everything has consequences, I can act in the world, okay? For example, if I do my homework, the consequences is that you are going to have a 10 in philosophy, okay? That is a really bad example and a moralistic example. I hate that, but okay. And if everything has a cause and a consequence, we need to consider a calculus, okay? A calculus is like, and this is more than a rational way, you know? That's the reason that I said that Thomas Hobbes was he was an empiricist philosopher, but he has also rationalistic ways of philosophy, you know? So in this calculus, with my reason, I can think, okay, I want this, so if I want this, I need to do certain things in order to have it, you know? In that sense, uh, this calculus is a certain way of power, okay? You calculate certain things, and if, for example, if you are smart, or if you are strong, or if you are, I don't know, you can use those aptitudes to get what you want, okay? Those abilities, those capacities. And that's the reason that I relate the word calculus with power, and as we are going to see, the word calculus with desires. And as you can see of what we already saw with all of those ideas, calculus implies, or not only calculus, all of that implies the desires, okay? If we have desires, if we by nature have desires, one question for you: can you escape from your desires, or you are desiring something all the time? According to Thomas Hobbes, you are desiring something all the time. For example, me in this moment, I want real bad this coffee, you know, because as you know, I cannot live without coffee. So, for example, I need coffee. I desire coffee. In other words, if Aristotle said that we were political animals, according to Thomas Hobbes, we are beings or animals in some way to say, but I think it's better if we say beings. We are beings that have by nature desires. Okay, by nature we desire things. We have passions. We want things, and those desires, as I said, implies certain notion of power, okay? So these desires, in that sense, some philosophers and thinkers say that Thomas Hobbes is saying that human being by nature is evil. Evil in what sense? And we are going to say with this, okay? But evil in the sense that he has an ego, okay? A human being is an egoistic being, you know. I want things, and in that sense, imagine that you have the same desire as anyone else. And the question that we saw in class: what would you do if you want really bad that desire? Would you kill? Would you rob? Would you hit them? And that's the thing. The thing is that in this opposition, we are selfish beings, okay? We want things and we cannot escape from that, you know? And actually test yourself and ask yourself if you don't want anything. I think if you really do that exercise, that all of you and even myself, everyone has desires. Everyone wants things. And that's the reason that I put into quotation marks the word evil. Evil in what sense? Is something bad that you have a desire, that you want to satisfy that desire? I would say in other words that for Thomas Hobbes, a human being is a being that consists of having desires, okay? It's a being with desires. That will be an anthropology from Thomas Hobbes, okay? So when this led us to these things, remember the state of nature, and that the state of nature is equal to saying the state of war. In this state of nature, we are presupposing that we don't have a government, that we don't have moral, that is not as we are saying. There is not a good thing or a bad thing. You only want to accomplish your desire. You only want to satisfy your necessities. What is the moral under that? In this state of nature, everything is cool. Well, it's not cool because you could be killed by anyone else, but everything is you have the permission to do that. You don't have a government that is going to punish you if you do those things, you know. In this state of nature, you have fear, okay? You have fear because you don't know if you are going to be killed by someone else. That imagine that anyone else wants my coffee too, and it's the only coffee in the city. And well, imagine that we are I don't know, in the forest. I don't know why a coffee will be in the forest, but the thing is, imagine that someone wants to kill me because I have my coffee. That person and I want the coffee. We have the same desire, but the thing is, I have a calculus, and the other person is going to be a calculus too, and the person that calculate the better in order to have the coffee, the person who get the best calculus is the person that actually who will have the more power. Okay, if you calculate in a better way, you have more power. So the winner is going to be always the person that is so smart, is smarter, or the person that is stronger. You know, the person that has more power at the end. Okay, and that is something that is in this way. Okay, in this state of nature, a state of war, everything is everything. If for example without government you could do anything, okay, but the thing is that if everything is, well, as I was saying, if everything is permitted, how we are going to get out of this state of nature? And moreover, and we saw in class, if you have desires, you want to keep your desires going on, you know, but the condition to keep going on your desires is your preservation, okay, your self-preservation. If anyone else is going to kill you, you are not going to be allowed to keep desiring and desiring and desiring. So the most important desire will be a preservation desire, okay, in some way to say it. And that is so important for the thing that we are going to say in a few moments. And well, I didn't say this, I realized in this moment, but if philosophy purpose, this is something that was at the beginning of the video, but for Thomas Hobbes there are two philosophy objects: the natural corpus or body, but I rather the translation corpus, and the political corpus. And the natural corpus is all of this that we already saw. What about the political corpus? Well, and finally, perhaps the image was quite fast, but if you want, you can Google it. It is called The Destruction of Leviathan. There is a painting of Gustave Doré, one of my favorite painters. I really love Gustave Doré. He did some paintings about the Holy Bible and actually from the Divine Comedy of Dante, so I love Doré. But the point is that if as you can see, the Leviathan was this sea monster, this I don't know, it was this sea monster, and we're going to say what is that, okay, under this context, because Thomas Hobbes was recognized, or the most important text by Thomas Hobbes was called the Leviathan, okay, and we saw that our principal desire is the preservation desire. We need to preserve ourselves in order to keep going and keep having desires, okay, so we need to. And in that sense, the objects of desires are less than the human desire. For example, we have one coffee, but a lot of people want this coffee, okay? And you don't only want a coffee, you want a lot of things, okay? So we need to create an agreement in order, if we really want to preserve ourselves, if we want to survive, okay? and that agreement is going to be called the social contract, okay? In other words, we are going to give to the social contract our rights, because the social contract is going to not create, but is going to put one figure that this figure is going to assure us that we are going to have that preservation right, that we are not going to kill each other, and that figure is called the sovereign. The sovereign, the ruler, okay? And in the state of nature, we didn't have any, for example, any good thing or bad thing. Everything was permitted. In this case, the sovereign is the person that determines what is good and what is bad. Okay. In other words, the moral statement is going to be installed by the sovereign. Okay, and in that sense, we are going to achieve that the multitude, all the persons, wants to give their power to one person or to one figure, and that is the point, okay? The point that this is one, okay? And that person or what that unique person or figure is the sovereign, okay? The ruler. And in that sense, you are going to create a commonwealth that in Latin will be civitas. What is that? Civitas or commonwealth, if you translate this word commonwealth, you are going to see that is in Spanish will be mancomunidad o comunidad de hombres, but the thing is that commonwealth is actually the estado con letra mayúscula, okay? That is the correct translation. So we confer our rights to the commonwealth, or in other words to the sovereign, in order to preserve ourselves. And in that sense, and I'm going to read real quick what Thomas Hobbes said. This done, the multitude so united in one person is called a commonwealth, in Latin civitas. This is one of the generation of that great Leviathan, or rather, to speak more reverently, of that mortal God, to which we owe under the immortal God our peace and defense. In other words, the Leviathan is that mortal God that is going to assure us the peace, our preservation, okay? And why? Because this Leviathan, look, sovereign, commonwealth, Leviathan are like synonyms. This figure is going to assure us the peace, because this figure has the power. This figure has the strength, okay? And that is the thing, okay? The social contract, we do a social contract, okay? And the social contract is between us, okay? We sign that contract in order to one figure that is called the sovereign, the Leviathan, or the commonwealth, el Estado, is going to assure us the right to the preservation, okay? But that contract is between us, okay? We are signing that contract, but that contract doesn't apply to the sovereign, okay? In other words, and this is the thing that we are going to think all of this partial, the sovereign is outside the social contract. How it is possible that that figure that is outside the social contract can control us, can in certain way tell us what is good, what is bad, and why if this is putting and establishing the laws, why the laws don't apply to the sovereign, okay? And that's because, in other words, the social contract is giving the sovereignty to the sovereign, but at the same time the sovereign is getting the social contract functioning, because with the power of the sovereign the social contract actually works. Okay, so imagine that the sovereign wouldn't have the power. You wouldn't have sovereignty. Okay, that's a logical thing actually. If we need order, if we need peace, there must be a figure that have the most and have the power and the strength to control all of us, all of that. Okay, and we are in certain ways subjects of this figure. We are only subjects, could be understood as súbditos, okay, citizens, nationals, but Hobbes is using the word subjects. We are subjects, súbditos of this sovereign. What do you think of that? And I want to close and to finish this video with one word, because I love words. But in the state of nature, you have fear. But in nature, you have fear. Okay? Do you have fear in this way of system? Yes, you have fear. You have fear, and you better have fear, because the one who has the power is the sovereign. Okay, so the modern model of society and political society has its origins in the fear. What do you think of that? Are you agree with that? Well, that's enough for today. Every comment, please let me know, and see you, my dear students.